Tella.
Okay, you're good.
Call the meeting to order at 6:06 p.m.
Probably in the other room.
I have still got some noise. I have the Pledge of Allegiance to start. Pledge allegiance to the flag.
United States of America, to the republic
for which it stands,
for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty,
liberty,
justice for all.
for all.
And I have to ask, is there any public comment?
Yeah, only the important people are on the screen. Me, Anne Marie, and the attorney.
No public comment? Everybody still here okay?
Yes.
Okay. This special meeting is for a budget workshop for the 2021 budget. And Mr. John Oldie can probably start off on his information.
Okay, well, good evening, everyone. This is John Oatley with Veolia. Unfortunately, I don't have the ability to share my screen, but prior to the meeting, I had sent out a slide presentation to everybody. Hopefully, you all have access to that because that will be what I'll be speaking to and from. The slide presentation is 10 slides in total. The purpose of the slides are simply to outline the current 1920 operating budget for the Seymour WPCA. The slides contain the current budget that we're working in, the current operating expenses, the current operating revenue. It outlines the 9 budget line item descriptions for each. Additionally, the slides, there's a slide that outlines the basic contract scope elements for Veolia Water, which would be inclusive of the Veolia Water fee. And then there's a slide which walks you through that calculation and the escalation of that fee for explanation purposes. Then there's a slide which represents the 2021 budget worksheet, which is a duplicate of the 2019-2020 budget worksheet minus any escalation or adjustments the WPCA would like to make during and subsequent to this budget workshop. Then there's a proposed usage rate. Again, it shows the current rate and then any proposed usage increase that the WPCA decides upon, and it describes what that sewer rate increase would be for. And then the final slide, the next to last slide, is just a single snapshot copy image of the existing WPCA 5-year capital plan put together by Navis and Young. I know earlier today, 3 additional work PDF documents were distributed, which has a lot more detail than this one current slide represents. Hopefully everyone has access to that as well. And then the final slide is just a screenshot image of a comprehensive repair and maintenance model that Veolia Water prepares each year. Walter and I go through this annually. And it just kind of allows us to help predict what equipment may or may not need servicing and what the expense of that might be to arrive at a reasonable annual R&M budget to present to the board. I mean, to the commission, I apologize. So that's the slide presentation. My expectation, Chairman, is that, I'll walk through the slides and then, obviously make this a dialogue with the goal of trying to develop an understanding of where our current budget and our current, your current budget and your current operating expenses are landing in an effort to try to predict and prepare a budget for next year based on that, what I would refer to as a run rate. Again, that's my intention for this evening, but again, this is, the WPCA's workshop. So if anyone would like to diverge from that outline or interrupt or add or whatever. I just don't want it to be something that I'm mandating. I'm just trying to, direct it in a certain way, but it's open for discussion. Any objections, any concerns, or should I move forward? Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, I say
Oh, okay.
move forward, Nick Hirosio.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, not hearing any objection, I think I'll just start walking through the slide presentation. The first slide, again, is the current operating budget for the 2019-2020 fiscal year. It was prepared last year. Like I said, it has 9 line items. The Veolia Water annual contract cost, the engineering and site inspection line item, legal counsel line item, state of Connecticut licensing fees, a maintenance line item, which incorporates the repair and maintenance activities, the town clerk lien and release line item, the accidental backup line item, which again, there's a description on a slide which describes each one in a little bit more detail, the IT and quality data line item, and miscellaneous. The budget last year was prepared similar to the way it was presented this year, where we calculate what the estimated revenues would be based on the rate of 100 cubic feet set at $5.06. The billable units, estimated revenue from that. There was an estimated 87% collection rate during last year's budget. The permit contractor and fees that were estimated to be brought in, the Connecticut DEP denitrification credit, if there was one, and any impact fees that may be collected. All of that operating budget, sum total an estimated revenue of $1,910,582.92. There also was an additional line item on that budget, which allocated about $275,860 for additional capital improvements. On that slide, there is a note at the bottom, which outlines what a 100% collection rate total revenue would equate to, and that's a total of $2,178,834.94. For informational purposes, to my knowledge, and John Morrow can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we've ever achieved 100% collection rate.
No, sir, we have not. Tomorrow.
So again, the next slide in the presentation is really just a description of each one of those line items, what each one encompasses in its bucket, if you will. If anyone has any questions on those, I can certainly go through all of them. But again, the purpose for time, I wanted to present that as its own separate slide. The next slide is the 2019-2020 current income statement, and it shows the current usage, permits, registration, and impact fees in terms of dollars received and the month in which they've been received. The total year to date in the income statement received up to April of 2020 is $1,737,369.20. Okay, there are still 2 months worth of trailing information to come in, and that number does get updated and presented to the WPCA monthly by John Morrow with Veolia Water. So I'm sure at next month's meeting, we will have the May accounting, so we can certainly update that total year to date of income to the WPCA. The next slide is the 2019-2020 expense statement, as I refer to it, and it outlines how the expenses are being allocated year to date against the budget. The first column lists the year-to-date spend in each one of the 9 categories. And then the next line in the spreadsheet indicates the percent of budget spent year to date. Again, this is as of the end of May 2020. So with the first line item being Veolia Water annual contract cost, we're at about 95% of budget as of the end of May. Engineering and site inspections is running 269% over budget year to date. Legal counsel is running approximately about 74% year to date with 2 more months to go. The licensing fee from the state of Connecticut is running at 19%. Our maintenance spend is running 154% of budget as of May 2020. The town clerk lien and releases is running at about 38%. Accidental backup against budget is running at about 76% with 2 months to go. And the IT and quality data is running about 53%, and miscellaneous is running about 79%. And then further on to the right of the spreadsheet, it lists each month and what the expenditure was in each one of those line items for that line item each month, so you can see kind of the spend over time. They're not very linear, so they do kind of ebb and flow with the years. What we have for a total year-to-date spend is $1,916,153.66 year-to-date as of May on the expense side of the budget. Any questions? I'll take a brief moment to make sure I'm coming through clear, and if I'm speaking too fast or anything, is this going okay?
Yeah, I hear you fine.
You're coming loud and clear. The
Loud and clear.
engineering and site inspections, 269% over budget.
Mm-hmm.
Can you expand on that a little as to?
Sure. Let me first, Emery, just describe it so
Okay.
everyone's clear as to what is encompassed in that. And it's all
Yes.
non-capital engineering functions,
Okay.
FOG inspections, sewer inspection and connection inspections, engineering of site plans, inflow and infiltration monitoring, meeting attendance. And those are the primary expenditures for that engineering and site inspection line item in the budget. Now, as far as what those all encompass, I guess I will at this time turn it over to John Morrow, and perhaps John can provide a little bit more context as to what brings us to that 269% budget spend.
Thank you, John. This is Jonathan Morrow. It's precisely as is described. Basically, engineering did, like they did the I&I monitoring on multiple streets, that sort of thing. Also, if you remember, there was the country club possibility of sewering. That had to be factored into it because it wasn't capital.
Right.
I think it might, this is John Oatley. I think it might also be helpful if I give you some numbers. The budget line item for engineering and site inspections for 2019-2020 was $15,000. Year-to-date spend is $40,361, resulting in that 269% to budget. I just wanted to make sure you had the actual numbers.
This is Emery. Thank you, John. That helped a lot with the original budget numbers.
Sorry, John Morrow, I didn't mean to interrupt, but you can go ahead and
No, that's fine, Mr. Oatley. Continuing on, mainly that's some of the highlights as to why it was rather over the budget because of those extra special things going on. Perhaps Jim Galligan wants to put in some more detail, but I mean, there was plenty of capital going on, but you know, not everything was under capital.
Sorry. Yes, Jim Galligan here. Yeah, the two major things that occurred this year that included extra expenses were the, as John said, the country club estates sewer assessment estimates and the flow monitoring for the I&I in that first phase. We've also done a second phase. We haven't completed to build that yet, but that'll be shortly. But the I&I is the major reason why that scope is that much larger.
This is Anne Marie. Is this an anomaly for this year? For the pricing for the engineering costs to be so high?
Be honest with you, Anne Marie, I don't think it is. I think that you look at a lot of the backups we get called in for, and even like the problem over there on Swan Avenue, we get called in for. I think we've just never included enough money in the budget item for that service.
This is Anne Marie again. I think maybe as we're working on this budget to hand in, that we put more money towards the engineering and site inspections as we're going through each line item, looking as to where we are lean, where we're not spending as much, where we can take out from to put it in there. Because if we are having the backups, that's where we need to run. And meetings, who knows how many more meetings we're gonna have.
Yes, this is John Oatley, Anne-Marie. I would agree. I think the purpose of the way that I've tried to lay out this spreadsheet is to show you precisely that, where we're lean in some area categories and over in other categories, to give the commission the information to basically adjust the puts and takes based on our actual run rate, but also anything that could be predictive in the future. Unfortunately, I've shared it as a PDF, but all of this is done on an Excel spreadsheet. And if we could somehow come up with a way to do a shared screen or something like that, perhaps we could actually do it in real time and see the impacts of doing that adjustment in real time. But for this purposes, I think I'll just take good notes, and then we'll obviously update the budget spreadsheets and distribute them for the ahead of the next call as we discuss possible adjustments and puts and takes.
This is Anne Marie again. Is everybody on cell phones, or are they on computers like iPhones, where if we did for our next budget meeting, where we did have them as Excel spreadsheets, everybody would be able to access them and they would actually see it, if Jim Cretella could share his screen, or James Galligan or John Oatley, or even myself, where we can share a screen and show you where the numbers change by putting it in an Excel spreadsheet. I think that would work. What do you think?
This is John Oatley. Yes, I absolutely think this would be more productive if we could actually use an Excel spreadsheet and share it amongst the group, because that's really the power of it. I wasn't sure if everyone had Excel, so I shared everything as a PDF. But if everyone has, or at least somebody on the commission side has access to Excel and wouldn't mind sharing their screen, I could certainly send the file in an Excel format.
Why can't they print that?
This is Jim Cretella. I don't have a computer to do that, so that's why I'm on the phone.
You think this is Nick Udosio, you think we're gonna be able to have a regular meeting soon, or are we opening it up for?
This is John Oatley, Nick. That would be very, very useful if we could find a way. I have attended other commission meetings in person recently, so I'm not sure of your specific restrictions, but certainly if we could meet in an event venue where I could put this up on a screen for us all, that we could do it in real time collectively.
Yeah, I mean, there's really not that many. There's not that many of us. We should be able to keep our distance, I would think. Just a thought, guys. I don't know what everybody else is thinking. I'm just talking.
This is
Emery, can the town give a release yet, or is it
I agree. I think that, this is Jim Galligan. I think that especially at this time of year, we may be able to, I've attended some meetings that have been outside rather than inside, just to avail the ability to be face to face and go over things.
Right. We cannot be, sorry, this is Anne Marie. We're not in buildings yet, but we can do it outside. I have a projector and a screen. So if we wanted to do it outside, I can supply all that.
This is Jim Cortell. That sounds like a good idea, Emery. That would probably help out a lot with this, all the numbers.
So we need a location.
Does the town have like a pavilion somewhere or something like that where we could be under in case we had some bad weather?
Chatfield Park, this is Don.
Just a thought.
This is Don. Chatfield Park has a pavilion.
Does it have electric power? Or you just use a battery on a laptop?
I'm not sure it has.
Well, we can make power if we have to. I'll bring a generator if we have to. I mean, we only need to run the projector, right? For Anne Marie's projector, it's not going to be we're not going to be drawing a lot of power.
No, the projector, sorry, this is Anne Marie again. The projector nor the laptop won't draw a lot of power.
No.
I don't know if the parks are opened as of yet.
Oh, okay.
But even if we went to the WPCA parking lot, and
This is John Oatley. Yes, Mary. I think we could certainly use the treatment plant area. There's sufficient parking lot area for that if we needed to. We could even bring in some separate tables and chairs to have everyone sit at the appropriate distance. And we wouldn't have to worry about power. We could just run some extension cords.
This is Anne Marie. Yeah, and that's what I was thinking as well. Run the extension cords. We can do the screen on the outside. Everybody would be socially distanced, and then we can work the numbers Excel spreadsheet that way. I think if everybody is comfortable with that, once again, everybody would have to be comfortable with that.
Well,
I'm comfortable with it. Nick, I'm comfortable with it.
This is John Uhelski. We might need like a rain option, a rain date or cancellation.
This is Anne Marie again. We could do a rain. I also have a tent, but I don't have a tent big enough if we did 6 feet and we'd have to file an agenda within 24 hours is the whole thing.
This is John Oatley. Could we propose 2 dates? One date as the primary and then post a rain date at the same time, so you wouldn't have to do that second notice. I'm not sure if that qualifies or not, but we could have a primary date and a rain date.
This is Anne Marie. I would defer to Attorney Proto on that one. Who's on mute? You're on mute, Ben.
Yeah, we could do that. What we could do is schedule 2 meetings and have the first meeting, whatever day it's going to be. If for any reason the weather should be not suitable, we would need literally 2 people to show up to open the meeting and recess it to the next meeting date. Rather than having a rain date, you can just schedule 2 meetings and we just might have to recess it to the next date. But I would suggest if you're going to do that, that you schedule 2 dates, name the place, date and time for both meetings, and post that agenda with the meeting notice and post the agenda as a budget workshop for both meetings. If we don't need the second one, we can always if we have the first one and we get it done, you can always cancel the second one at that meeting.
This is Anne Marie again. Remember, we can have up to 50 people there, so the public may come as well, and as long as they stand there 6 feet away from us, then we're fine. They can't really speak at the meeting, but they could listen at the meeting, correct,
Yep.
Attorney Prado?
That's correct. It's a public meeting. They can attend just as they can attend the Zoom meeting. They're more than welcome to stand out in the park, the sewer plant. Might be better than sitting inside.
Maybe.
Probably could do it on the back side of the plant and where the garage doors are, the big garage doors. And it's, if we have to, we can tape a sheet up or something like that for the screen.
I have, oh, this is Anne Marie. I have a portable screen.
Well, let me ask a question. If we're a little off topic where we're supposed to be, but if there's a garage there, is the garage large enough to conduct the meeting in?
You don't want to be in the garage.
Got
This
it.
is-
Okay.
This is John Oatley. Yeah,
Okay. I threw it out there, volleyed back. Okay. Service returned.
This is
Got
Anne
it.
Marie shaking my head, no.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, well, that's good. This is John Oatley. I'm not sure if we can cover that at the end of the presentation tonight, or if you want to, am I set to move forward, or is there further discussion that needs to be had?
This is Jim Cretella. Could we possibly pick a couple dates for next week if we can get it all out of the way now? If it's okay with everybody, then we can proceed with the Zoom scheduling. If we can maybe have it 24th and 25th.
This is John Oatley. Those dates work for Veolia.
Okay.
Marie,
There,
those
maybe
dates-
everybody can. You go with that?
I'm good
I've
with
got
that.
an issue. I may have an issue on the evening of the 25th, so hopefully we'll have good weather on the 24th.
Yeah.
Right.
If not, I'll just have to work around it.
Okay, it's Jim Cretella again. Is everybody okay with the 24th and 25th?
Johnny Uholsky, yes.
Okay.
Nick Teodosio, yes.
Jim Galligan, yes.
Okay.
All right, so Jonathan,
Well,
you'll
Walter.
do, I'm sorry, go ahead, Walter.
I didn't say anything, but yeah, I'm good for those dates.
All right. Jonathan, if you can prepare a meeting notice, a special meeting notice, same as for tonight for the 24th and a continued meeting on the 25th. And the date 6 o'clock for everybody again.
That's
This is
good, yeah.
Anne Marie. Yes, that works for me.
Okay.
Would be two separate notice?
I would do it as two separate notices.
Very
I would-
good.
Okay. And then an agenda for each one.
Okay.
All right, this is Jim Cretella. You want to finish off, John?
Sure.
Oatley?
Okay, this is John Oatley speaking again. Again, going down the current expense statement list, the next biggest variance would be in the maintenance category. Our current year-to-date spend for repair and maintenance is $92,578, which is 154% of budget. The budget for that line item is $60,000. So that would be one we'd probably want to discuss, and then I could provide some additional detail at the next meeting for what exactly was in those categories. I know it gets presented each month, but if there's any specific questions about that. So moving on from the current income statement, the next slide is really just this is really just for some background for the commission. It outlines the basic contract scope elements for Veolia, what's encompassed in that fee, and it also explains how the fee is escalated via a blended CPI index. I just felt it might be valuable, without going through the entire contract, to just pull out what the scope elements are that incorporate that fee. And that again is to perform all the maintenance and repairs on the project within our capabilities, attend the meetings, provide the expenditure detail, pay all costs for the normal project operations, including utilities, all the utilities, consumables such as fuels, chemicals, electricity, and all the supplies required for the normal operations and maintenance of the project. It's obviously encompasses all the staff, all 6 employees, all licensed in accordance with the state of Connecticut, provides for the collection and dewatering and hauling of the sludge that's generated and disposal for it. It encompasses all the laboratory analysis, the sampling, and the testing required. It also provides for the biannual billing and collection services that we provide to the town, including the software and any updates to that software. It encompasses the responsibility for the bookkeeping and record keeping associated with that billing and collections. And then there's obviously that requirement to report all accidents and unusual activity to the Wpca within the 24-hour time period. So again, there's a lot more in the contract, but these were just the basic scope elements that I felt would be some good context when you look at that Veolia fee. The next slide is how that wastewater service fee calculation is done and how it was done from January 20, for this year, this fiscal year for Veolia, January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020. The way the CPI works, according to the contract, is it's weighted in 3 categories. One is the employee index. Basically, 45% of our fee is adjusted by the weight of the payroll, basically. And then there's I'm sorry, that's 30%. Another 45% weighted index for the just the CPIU, which stands for everything not included with payroll. And then the final index is the CPI for water, sewer, and trash services, which is weighted at 25% for a total weight of 100%. And these are all indexes that are provided by the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, the Federal Bureau of Labor and Statistics. And the fee looks at the period of time by up to September for those indexes, and then that gets applied in January 1. For context purposes, right now, the indexes are running at approximately 2.4%. And again, that's included on that slide. Now, I will be, candid. Now, due to COVID, these indexes are likely to change and change in the downward projection. I don't know exactly where they will end up, but I don't envision them going higher than 2.3%. In fact, I envision them going less than 2.3%. And that'll be an important consideration when the commission weighs what it wants to budget for our annual fee. The next slide is the proposed 2021 budget worksheet. Again, it's a mirror image of the existing 1920 budget, except with a couple of additional columns in the Excel spreadsheet where and we can see this as a group, when you start inputting different increases, negative or positive, it will impact the previous year's budget to arrive at a new budget value for each of those line items. And that includes, again, all 9 existing line items in the budget. And obviously, if the commission were to want to include additional line items or take line items out at your discretion, the Excel spreadsheet will afford us that opportunity very easily. And then it goes on to include the rate per cubic feet, the billable units, and then a percent collection rate. Whatever the commission envisions our percent collection rate might be, we can input that, and that will affect obviously all the calculations for the budget. And then the final item is any additional funds that the commission wants to set aside for capital improvements. And that would then all sum total a final annual 2021 2021 budget for the WPCA. The next slide is what was originally proposed as the usage rate, which is the 10% increase. And it showed the current minimum usage rate at $121, with a 10% increase bringing it to $133. And then the 10% increase on the well charge of $181. On that slide, the justification for that proposed rate increase was to fund those engineering capital improvements that are in the Navis and Young capital improvement plan based on that that capital plan spreadsheet calculations. And I know the next slide is just a snapshot of that proposed capital plan starting in 2019 going out to 2024 with the, kind of with the expenditure and the cost associated with it and the amount of additional revenue required to fund it. But as I stated earlier in the call, emails came out today which provided a lot more context to that 5-year capital plan. So I would refer you to those attachments in those emails for additional context. And then the final slide, and again, if we have the ability to demonstrate this in Excel, you'll see the power of this model that Walter and I developed and have in place, which guides us in informing the commission in terms of what we believe the repair and maintenance expenditures could be for the upcoming year. It has listed on the spreadsheet every piece of equipment, both in the plant and the pump stations. It looks at the number of pieces of equipment, what we refer to as the load percentage, which means how much do we use it. 100% meaning all the time, and 0% meaning never. The life percentage, how old is the piece of equipment versus its useful life. What the unit cost for that piece of equipment is new, and then the life expectancy of that piece of equipment when it's new. And then there's obviously some notes and some information that's in that. And that model, as you begin to input the data, arrives at an annual spend. And you can bring this out to 1 year, 5 years, 25 years, or anything in between. And it's a good tool that we use, and we could certainly continue to modify it to the commission's request to allow for a window into what we believe or what the data suggests the annual R&M expenditures should be to adequately repair and maintain the facility over that period of time. So that's my presentation. And again, I think the next one, given that we're all together and using Excel, I think will provide a lot more usability and make this probably a little bit more productive. But I did want to lay out, at least from Veolia's perspective, what the current budget and what the future or potentially future budget line items look like, what our current run rate is at, what they encompass, and then give the commission the information they need to make whatever adjustments they feel necessary for the next 2021 budget. With that being said, I'm this is as I have presented it, but if necessary, and if there is information out there from any of the commissioners or any of the town officers that need additional information, I would just respectfully ask to provide us with a description and a detail of what exact information you would request, and we'll be sure to try to get hold of it and make it available if it's within our ability to do so. So that is the extent of my presentation. I think at this time, it would be my recommendation that perhaps we can answer questions, certainly, but if Jim Galligan would like to just discuss a little bit about the 5-year capital plan that's in place for the WPCA, the Seymour WPCA, we can certainly talk about that as well as, any questions that may arise from that discussion.
Jim Galligan. Thank you, John. All right, so you've probably received 3 or 4 different options for rate increases connected to the various improvements that we're recommending for the sewer treatment plant. 2 areas that are really in serious need is the headworks and the sludge dewatering systems. We've put together 2 or 3 different financing and option plans for getting enough money to do this work. The bottom line is that you're underfunded to be able to afford to do these upgrades unless you start to increase your rates, fairly significantly. And then you can see I have 2 or 3 different options of 9% across the board, some that run between 11 and 15%, all depending on how aggressively you want to try and attack the improvements. So from my standpoint, from where I'm sitting, some input from the commission as to how aggressively do you want to attack these improvements. And these different spreadsheets can tell you what type of rate increases are needed to be able to meet that pace.
So this is Anne Marie. I have a couple questions on the 5-year capital plan funding worksheet that I know you sent to everybody. And this is dated from 2018, Jim.
That's correct.
I think everybody except for Mr. Sosnovich was on the board at that time, I believe. And I'm trying to recall why we didn't go ahead with the 5-year capital plan funding worksheet at that point in time. Why we didn't plan on that? Do you remember any of that?
Well, my memory says that one of the major problems was that with the economy and the foreclosures and so on, the commission didn't feel that the residents could bear that type of increase. I think they were concerned about backlash at town hall. I think they were concerned about some backlash at public hearings, and were reluctant to try and press the issue at that time.
So I know you presented us with the CMON report as well.
Yes.
Can you tell me about that?
Well, the
wait.
CMON report has got to do with the operation and maintenance of the system. The I&I study that first phase of I&I study is part of that. The second phase that I'm ready to release by the end of the month, this month, is another phase in it. But you've got, we're recommending that the commission spend upwards of $100,000 a year to do upgrades to your collection system. The primary expense in that is related to reduction of infiltration inflow. As you know, you have an exorbitant amount of infiltration inflow, and it has a dramatic impact on the operation of the plant. As I said, we've got you've done some work on it already, and we're wrapping up a second phase of it. But the regional study recommended that you had people spend $500,000 a year in your collection system. I think that's a little heavy-handed, but certainly at this point in time, with the amount of infiltration inflow you have, the age of your tile, vitrified clay tile system, the age of your asbestos pipe system, you need to be more aggressive in trying to control your infiltration inflow. You also need to do, and this is always a tough one, smoke testing. Smoke testing is a very unpopular process. A lot of people complain about it when it happens, but smoke testing would be very, very valuable in this system because of the immediate spike that is recognized at the plant when you have heavy rains. So the CMOM right now is really related to infiltration and inflow, and then the next step would be sonar testing and manhole inspection, and the next step would be to do testing, sealing, and smoke testing.
This is Anne Marie, and I know this may be off the budget discussion, but with them speaking about, with the state speaking about the regionalization, the VCOG speaking about the regionalization of, water pollution control facilities, we would actually have to do these anyways for their study. We would probably be mandated to do these studies.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the CMOM requirements are connected to your collection system, not to whether you're regionalized or whether you're not. It's, because when they go, just say, for example, that you did end up going into a regional system, all this work has to be done anyways to be able to clean up your part of the collection system.
Jim, this is John Oatley. That number is for the analysis of the CMOM program. It really is not even to affect repairs that will be identified as part of that study, correct?
Well, that's correct. Yeah, the right now the $100,000 each year that we're recommending. You look at it. We spent around $30,000 doing the first phase of the infiltration and flow monitoring. It's around $30,000 for the report that we'll be sending out in the next couple of weeks. Right now you're in the investigative stage. You're not even ready to start to do the remediation stage because you need to know where to best target your remediation.
This is Anne Marie. I feel that I feel as a board that we really need to take a good look at this budget, and thank you, John, for putting this together and for helping us, and really look at the future of the Seymour WPCA. We have seen firsthand, and by Jim Galligan. How long have you been the engineer?
Since 1994.
All right. So I think, and please, anybody correct me if I'm wrong, I really think that we need to take a good look at this budget and what we are going to do in moving forward in a 5-year capital plan, and really work together with Veolia to get the things that need to be done to bring this plant up to I don't want to say up to compliance, because the plant is in compliance, but just to ensure that we have a good feeling saying that we're giving Veolia everything that they need to do to operate this plant successfully.
It's Jim Galligan again. If you were to ask me about funding and so on, at this point, you look at this last report that we issued out, you're already a year behind on this 9% increase ratings. If you were to ask me how to get on track, I'd be saying you need to do a 9% increase for the rates in the fall, another 9% increase for the rates in the spring, and another 9% increase for the rates next year. You need to develop income to be able to accomplish the improvements that are needed to be done here. You're woefully underfunded, and you need to generate revenue to be able to repair the system.
This is Anne Marie again. I would agree. Jim Cretella, you're on the Board of Finance, right? What do you think about going out for bonding?
Well, if it's available to the commission, I'm not sure how that works. You familiar with that, or?
Yes. I just wanted to ask the chair's opinion on that. I do have
Yeah,
a couple.
It would be good. It'd probably be easier to budget that if you knew you could get bonding, get a good rate like the town has, correct?
Yes. John, John Otley, I do have a couple of questions that First Selectman Miller did send over to me. I'd like to ask some questions on those, if I can.
Certainly, John Lee, certainly.
Okay. First question he has is, what can be done to increase the collection rate?
We've, in other areas where we operate our billing systems, there's a couple of things that have made, dramatic is a relative term, but made improvements, and that is having an online billing portal where people have the ability to go online, and certainly being able to pay with credit cards. Oftentimes increases the collection rate fairly substantially. I have put our billing specialist, Melissa Meridian, who handles our New London billing hub, in touch with Mr. Proto to kind of outline, what that looks like, and we could certainly put together, a kind of a framework for that. I know we also instituted a similar program in North Haven, a town nearby to you, and we saw an increase there as well. Those are the two that jump right off the, the page, if you will, in terms of what I know. I certainly don't pretend to be the billing expert for Veolia, but I can certainly make available our billing specialists to the WPCA. And any written question you have, Anne-Marie, I can certainly have someone within that division respond accordingly as well.
All right. I'll get
Anne-Marie, if I could, this is Ben Proto. Melissa and I have had a couple conversations, and she's forwarded over, and I'll forward that over to everybody as well, a online collection program, credit card collection program, where we could put links up and allow people to pay via credit card, which is, she's indicated has been, as John said, has been indicated in a number of the other Veolia towns. And she's very, I think much like John, she's very high on the ability to see an increase in collections through the use of an online bill payment system.
Thank you. This is Amber again. The next question I have from First Selectman Miller was, why has the billable units decreased so much?
I specifically don't have an answer. John Morrow, could you weigh in on that? This is John Otley.
Yes, I can. This is John Morrow. The reason why the billing units fluctuate, they go up and they go down. It's all based on water consumption, so it's completely uncontrolled. Some people use more water and other times they don't. It also based on how many, vacant homes that have been foreclosed upon. That'll cause a dip. There's a lot of factors that Aquarion Water, registers in terms of consumption that honestly can't be quite controlled because it's all based on people's actual consumption during the winter.
Okay. Logical. Ms. Emery, again, what is the historical trend of the maintenance line and engineering line? And what are the reasons for last year's large over budget amount? And what is expected the cost for fiscal year 21?
Okay, I'll break those out individually if I could. Part of, expenditures being, over budget or under budget has a lot to do, I think, with just the budget process first and foremost. Within our existing contract, the repair and maintenance limit is set at $25,000 annually. We, as an entity, have always advocated, obviously to increase that budget line item to the commission. It has been recently set at 60,000, which is above the contractual amount of 25. But I would refer you to that maintenance model on the second to last page of the slideshow, or actually it's the last page, I apologize, where you can see that according to our projections, we believe that the repair and maintenance budget line item should be somewhere around $225,000 annually. Now, again, that's a model. It's based on, again, the quantity, the load, the life, and where the piece of equipment in its life cycle exists. Another factor is, typically you want to spend a certain percentage of your annual operating revenue on repair and maintenance, just as a ratio. And that ratio is typically anywhere between 10 and 20%. Just within the industry, if you will. The variance would likely be attributed to, mostly a failure, perhaps, whereas, you can't anticipate, things are getting older, and if they're, the longer you push off replacement, the more expensive and the more likely they are to fail in the future. But similar to what I would say is the capital planning budget, I think historically we've been certainly on the shortfall side of our repair and maintenance model would predict for expenditures on an annual basis. I can tell you very candidly, during the 2016 contract negotiations and during the RFP and bidding process, Veolia advocated very strongly at that time to increase that $25,000 a year allowance. Mm-hmm. And, obviously that didn't occur, but we recognized, at that time clearly that number needed to be, much higher. And if you were to, and I could do this analysis for the commission if they so choose, or if they so instruct, I could certainly provide you with similar treatment systems, plants and pump station systems, and what their annual R&M spend is compared to where Seymour is. And it's a two-edged sword. I think when you look at how well the plant operates, and it's certainly its uptime and its compliance and its safety, the amount that's been spent to date has been spent very judiciously, if you will. Pardon the poor choice of words, but it has, it's really our highest, responsibility is to make sure that we're not wasting money. So I think, the fact that we've been able to be on the low side of repair and maintenance expenditure, but still maintain the high quality of treatment and uptime and safety, I think is a tribute to the collaborative process we have in place. But again, that's not something that necessarily could last forever. So I don't know if that answers your question, but clearly I think it's obvious that we're well underfunded in repair and maintenance and have been for as long as the contract's been in place. Our existing model would indicate that we would need to spend at least 4 times what we're currently budgeted to spend, and certainly far greater than what's contractually obligated to be spent. So that's sort of on the repair and maintenance, and I hope that answers that question.
This is Amber again. Would it make it easier for the commission and for Attorney and Proto and Jim Galligan, as well as you, Mr. Oatley, if I put all these questions in writing and send them to everybody, and then you can prepare your answers and submit them to everybody, because they may have some of the same questions as I have, and then we can see everything in writing.
Sure, that would certainly be helpful to me as well.
Chair Cratella?
Jim Cratella here. Yes, I think it's a good idea.
All right, this way we're not tying up everybody's night
Yeah,
with,
I appreciate that also, Anne Marie. This is John Lee. Just because, I'm talking on my feet, so to speak, but having the question in written form would give me an opportunity to really provide a much more thorough and expansive explanation and description.
this way I think that would just be easier to everybody as well. And then when we meet, I'll make sure I have the hard copies of what Mr. Galligan sent to everybody, so we can look at that as well. We'll have hard copies as well.
Okay.
Not to cut our meeting short or anything like that. I just thought it'd be easy for everybody else that way.
Sure.
I agree.
What does everybody think?
Agreed.
Yeah, agreed. This is Jim Cratella again. And we have a question. Is it possible maybe the tax collector can shed some recommendations on her good collection rate?
Sure. Get some ideas.
She does very well on the town.
Yes, I'll get some information from Dana as well to do that.
I think her rate is like 98.8 or something.
Yes. But I think this way instead of this meeting, I don't want to say it doesn't sound like it's going to go anywhere, but we'd rather have a productive meeting than just people just talking back and forth at us.
Anne Marie, if you're going to ask the tax collector, just so we can compare apples and apples, you can get what percentage of real estate tax bills are paid by mortgage companies. That's one of the reasons why real estate tax collections are much higher, is that most of them are paid by mortgage companies.
That's true. That's true. But
That's a good point.
we could ask, but not that I want to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure, or anything like that. I just think that'd be a better use of everybody's time than us just sitting here tonight doing this.
Yeah, and this is John Oatley, Anne Marie, and Mr. Chairman. I can certainly, if the commission would so desire, I can canvass several of our other communities to see what their sewer and water collection rates are at percentage-wise for comparative purposes, if that's helpful.
Yes, Jim, I think that's a good idea, just to compare different area towns.
And John, when you do that, when you get their collection information, ask them when their bills are due. If they're due January and July, or if they're due off tax cycle. So I think I still think that's another reason, one of the reasons why your collection rate is lower, is that you're off tax cycle.
In my bed. Should we go to Wendy's and get a Frosty?
No.
Okay, get enough for everybody, Nick. Large ones, please.
Be awfully large.
All right, thanks,
I'm
guys.
coming down.
All right,
I'm
talk
going
to
to
you
bring him to the meeting.
You need a motion to adjourn.
later.
If you're done, if you're done, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I just wanted to, this is Jim again. I said everybody's okay with those dates again, and we'll have to set up that meeting outside the plant. Yeah. If there's no other questions, I guess we can get
Just
a motion to adjourn.
Jonathan Morrow, just so everybody remembers, because, and that's mostly for my sake, because I have a bad memory lately. Once you get the meeting notices and agendas, if you would email those to everybody.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Have a second?
I'll second Nick Giosio.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you on the